All right, so let's get into it. So this episode is technically going to be like two separate cases. The first one is like has quite a bit more information that I could find. The other one was like it seemed like there wasn't as much information available. Partially because I mean nobody was really like talking about it until she came out about it. Like
okay.
But the first one is like fairly well known if you're a fan of true crime, like I would assume. It is like it doesn't take place in the US, it's from Europe, but big trigger warning for like parental abuse because there is a incestual relationship in this case, and then obviously just like torture. And I mean, I'm not going to be like super specific with any of it. It's going to be very much like a normal true crime episode. Nothing in it is going to seem that much crazier than the Blanche Monnier case. Like, I'm not going to do any more deep details than that case.
What was that one with the lady that was the girl in the box?
The coffin.
Oh, Colleen Stan, yeah.
That one was really
I
rough,
won't be,
too.
like, much more specific than that, so. So the subject of this week's case, or at least the first like 3/4 of it, is Elisabeth Fritzl. She was a woman who was held captive for 24 years in Amstetten, Austria, where she was brutally raped by her father, Josef Fritzl, and consequently conceived 7 children with him. During these 24 years. And this was her like biological father. Like,
what year?
So it started in 1984, and so she got out, I think it was 2008.
That's not nearly long enough ago.
No. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago
not
at all.
that would ever be like the right thing, but just like I was just thinking like maybe it's possible that they didn't know the effects of incestual like births. So I mean, not that it is ever right to have incestual relationships, but I think morally people have always felt that was wrong, like throughout history. Like it seems wrong, you know, like other than Oedipus, but he doesn't count.
Oh God, not Oedipus.
Isn't that like mythology?
Yeah.
Fiction, right?
Shakespeare,
yeah.
Okay.
which is fiction.
Well, I know that. I couldn't remember if it was mythology. Never mind. I sound dumb. Okay, continue.
So on a hot day in August 1984, 18-year-old Elisabeth went downstairs with her father Josef in their home to help him put up a door. Immediately after, a rag soaked in something. I saw ether, which I think is just like ether, sorry. Some form of like alcohol or chloroform or whatever.
Does a similar effect as chloroform.
Yeah. So he held it to her face, and when she woke up, she was inside of a room with the door shut, and she basically just helped her dad like put the door on her
I was
future
just thinking,
prison.
so she just put the door up for
her prison. Yeah.
What an
she
asshole.
she helped him put it up. And
again, that's like the worst part about like things happening within a family, because you trust your family members more than anything
totally
else.
Yeah, like your dad, like
that's gotta have come out of nowhere. She was 18, you said?
Yeah, and she had been suffering like sexual abuse from him for
years.
Yeah, like it wasn't like the sexual abuse wasn't a new thing. I'm sure that it came out of left field though, that he would like lock her in a bunker to abuse her.
What a psycho.
He actually apparently had been like making the plans for this bunker type cellar thing since the late 70s.
I was gonna say, like, a bunker isn't something that you're just like
no, like so like he was like planning. He had like built it, and like, and his family, even like his wife especially, like didn't really think anything of it because I don't know, it wasn't, again, so like because of this time period, so this is like kind of like the Cold War is just kind of, I think, just gotten over.
Like they thought he was just like prepping?
Yeah, and like people did nuclear bunkers all the time. No one even really like So the city council in their town actually like gave him money to help build it, because they're like, oh, it's a nuclear bunker, like that's a great idea to like.
Well, that's messed up.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, of course, it's messed
wow.
up, but like several different like contractors helped him build stuff, like people that he knew from past jobs, like helped him, I don't know, pour foundation or put windows in, or I mean, there wasn't any windows, but so at the time, I think Josef kind of like justifying it to himself, he was like, oh, so 18-year-old Elisabeth had kind of like, she had kind of like a tumultuous child, like teenage years. Mm-hmm. She like often tried to run away and kind of like be on her own, probably because of the abuse. Mm-hmm. But and he actually initially, like, when she went downstairs and people started asking, like her family and her mom like started asking where she had gone, he was like, well, you know, she's been trying to run away several times. She probably just successfully ran away this time.
Wait, that's what the father told him?
Yeah.
Oh, what a...
I mean, he procures a more elaborate reason, but that was like initially what he said. Yeah. So at first, Josef kept his daughter chained like right up next to the bed, and she had like basically like there was a chain extending from the ceiling, and it was like connected to her wrist, mm-hmm. and she couldn't move further than to lay down on the bed, basically.
Okay.
This only lasted like 1 or 2 days, and then he transferred the chain to her waist to make it probably easier to lay down, because I don't know if she could completely lay down with it like extending from her weight,
when you have to have your arm like up in the air, which would be uncomfortable.
According to indictment papers, he eventually removed the chain altogether sometime in the first year. I think I saw like 9 months, but there wasn't like an exact time frame, because it was, quote, this is in the indictment papers, hindering his sexual activity with his daughter, end quote. Yeah, obviously kind of gross, but I just
kind of a lot.
Yeah, well, like I just wanted to include that simply to like
the shock factor.
Yeah, and just like to explain the depravity of this man, honestly.
Yeah.
So Josef reassured authorities, as well as Elizabeth's mother, Rosemary.
It's Rosemary.
IE at the end, though. Rosemary.
I would say Rosemary.
Yeah.
This week on Words We Can't Pronounce.
Yeah.
Dun, dun,
dun. He assured everybody that his daughter had just run away to join a religious cult. I guess she had like threatened this kind of thing several times before. Again, she's 18, so like, is it really running away, or is it just her being an adult?
And she also had been abused by her father.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, obviously she would want to get away.
Eventually, he even like produced a letter that she had allegedly written. The search of the area for the missing girl eventually led to nothing, and everyone kind of abandoned hope and like stopped looking. As anybody would after a while. Like, eventually you can only look so far.
Well,
like,
especially if you like came up with like fake evidence, basically, that she had
yeah,
left.
and like it's just crazy that she was like literally underground at this person's house in the middle of town the whole time.
It's like something you would hear in a movie. Doesn't it feel real?
So over the next 24 years, Josef regularly sexually assaulted his daughter, sometimes multiple times a day. She spent the first 5 years entirely alone. After about the 2-year mark, Josef began raping and abusing her, but rarely speaking to her, except to threaten her to obey, or else things would get worse. He was constantly telling her, like, if she just, like, let him do what he wanted and didn't try to escape, like, he would take relatively good care of her.
So honestly,
from her being in a basement.
Relatively being the key word, relative to the situation,
relatively is a very key word.
But
yes,
but it's interesting that he didn't talk to her, because it was like he knew. It's almost like he knew that like deep down in his soul, like this was his daughter, and he knew that like he had like a paternal like love for her, and if like she was able to kind of talk him out of it, basically, then he, you know what I mean, like he would like kind of like revert back to like nature, like, oh my god, you're right, this is my daughter, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and like we'll try to post pictures on the Instagram of this like dungeon essentially, and it's like it's eerily like bright,
weird,
like there's dirt walls, but then there's like random like tiling, there's like pretty much a full bathroom.
So he, like, finished it?
He made it, like, it looked like a nuclear cellar, like a nuclear bunker, like, essentially. So that's, like, the best way I can describe it. I don't know what you would Google to find it, but... So as she gave birth to the children that she was fathering with her father, the children that lived in the dungeon with her would sometimes have to, like, watch the abuse, or at the very least listen to it. I'm assuming she was usually telling him, like, hey, go in that room, like,
Wait,
was there multiple
whose children
rooms down there? Their children.
Their children, her and Joseph's.
Father's.
So she was alone until she had a baby.
Yeah. And then, I mean, yeah, it gets a little crazy. So, like, Room, the book, the author, like, was partially inspired by this story. Have you guys read that book?
Yeah, you gave it to me.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
I think so.
It's, like, sort of similar. Like, it's not similar in, like, the family relation part.
But that they were having children. Yeah.
The births took place over 12 years, where Elisabeth would birth the children herself. Josef had, like, given her a 1960s book on childbirth. This is a point of contention because people are like, somebody had to have known. People, like, have, like, somewhat of a hunch that Rosemary was down there birthing the children, even though she claims to have, like, no idea.
The mother?
She, like, fled when she found out about all this, like, obviously out of shock, but I think some people have, like, a sneaking suspicion that she knew, and
I don't necessarily think it was her, but maybe he knew a doctor.
Left. No. Well, yeah, exactly. And there's, like, some other things that you're like, there had to have been somebody, like, looking in on her when nobody was there. Like, to make sure she didn't die, you know?
Well, also, like, I'm just thinking, the chances of her having 7, you said?
Yeah.
7 children?
She had 7 pregnancies, 6 children.
Yeah, so having that many without... Did she
Or
miss...
no, 6 pregnancies. There was a twin in one of them, and it died.
One of the twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was pregnant 6 times, and one of the kids died. One of the twins.
After birth?
Yeah. It was, like, alive for less than 48 hours. I can't remember off the top of my head, but...
Well, I mean, that just kind of... It seems weird to me that all of her births went fine. No complications at all. Like,
and you are not the only person that thinks that. That's what I'm saying.
Very, very unrealistic.
Yeah. That's what people are kind of thinking. They're like, there had to have been somebody helping her with these births.
Not to say that... I mean, because obviously they used to birth unassisted all the time, but unassisted in a medical sense, not unassisted. Like, there were women
that catch the baby.
Yeah.
Like, by
and
yourself.
There were women that, like, they were midwives even before, like, culturally. They were the women in like, the society that you lived in.
Yeah, he did give her, like, anesthetic, I think, and maybe, like, a needle and thread to, like, sew herself up. I have no idea. Like, it seems to me, from what I could see, like, he gave her, like, sanitizing stuff, like, to, like, sanitize, and then a book about how to give birth, essentially.
Well, I mean, the fact that, just thinking about it, like, if she had to be stitched... Like, there's no way...
I'm sure it didn't come to that.
There's no way you could stitch yourself.
No, I'm sure it didn't come to that. But, so her 2 eldest children, Kirsten and Stefan, as well as her youngest, Felix, were living with her in the dungeon when they were all finally released in 2008. So, only 3 were, like, living with her.
Where'd the other 3 go?
Hold on.
We're getting there.
It seems like she really tried to, like, give them the best life that she could. She was, like, kind of, like, teaching them. Like, all of the education which was a somewhat limited education that she had, she was, like, trying to pass along to them, essentially.
Well, it's nice that, like...
And she was trying to make it... Hope. She was trying to make it
that they would
normal.
Be out.
She didn't want... She kind of, I think she had this idea that eventually Joseph would die and hopefully they'd get out.
Yeah, and we would be able to live a normal life.
Yeah, he can't live forever.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about how Joseph had said that there was some kind of, like, timer on the door, because there was this padlock door that he had to use, like, a remote to open that he, like, kept with him at all times. But I remember reading something that said that he was like, there was, like, a timer of some kind, so if I didn't open it every once in a while, it would, like, open itself. So it was probably...
If he died.
Probably was using it in case he died. as like a failsafe, but
So he cared about her enough that he didn't want her to starve
well,
to
he didn't
death.
want her to die. I mean, like, he really didn't want her to
Honestly,
die. He wanted
probably
her
for
to
his
suffer,
own
but-
selfish reasons.
Oh, totally,
He didn't want her to
totally.
die. But still, I think, again, like I said, like, that's why he didn't want to talk to her very much, because he knew, or why he didn't want to be there for the births of his children, grandchildren, because he knew that, like, he'd be like, what the hell am I doing? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, he would snap into it and be like, this is what the...
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I think he didn't trust himself to, like, withstand whatever begging that... And, I mean, I think that she was very much, like, forced into silence. Like, she was like, it's not gonna do me any good.
Yeah. So she
kind of, like,
lady.
made... Well, especially when she started having her kids, like, I'm sure she was kind of just like, let's just make the best of the situation. Because,
now I have children that I need to take care of, sort of thing. Yeah.
So the other 3 children that she had, so this was like number 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, because there was like
The middle ones.
Yeah, the middle children essentially. Or no. Yeah, 3, 4, and 5.
The middles were living there.
Essentially, yeah.
No, the oldest and the youngest were living with her in the dungeon.
Yeah, so Kirsten's the oldest. What's the other
Stefan.
guy? Stefan.
And then Felix, who's the
Felix was
youngest.
like the youngest. He was 5
Then
when they got
there's
released.
Lisa,
Then there's
Monica.
I'm
sorry.
Why are you taking over?
Because you just asked what the name was. I thought you didn't know their names.
No, I do know their names.
She's looking at the same shit as you.
No, I'm looking at a photo that I looked up.
Oh, anyway.
That makes sense then.
Yeah, so the 3 middle children, essentially, I guess age-wise, would mysteriously show up at the doorstep of the Fritzls' home. So they eventually came to live with Rosemary and Joseph, like, in the house above the cellar.
They
Joseph
just showed up on the doorstep, and Rosemary was like, "This is normal."
So Joseph forced Elisabeth to write letters alleging that she loved the children but could no longer care for them and wished
like-
her parents to...
She wasn't in the basement.
No, yeah, like, she was, like, he was, like, you need to write a letter, like,
Rosemary
you ran away,
didn't
you
know.
had these kids in the cult, and you're dropping them off because you want us to care for them.
Because the cult wasn't good enough. So, I mean, kind of what is happening.
Yeah, so, it's really, like, unclear why he chose...
A cult story?
No. Why he chose the children that he chose to come live with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there was any, like, psychological motive. It was like...
Or, like, correlation.
Well, he claims that, like, the ones that were louder, that were crying louder, that he, like, thought would get them found out. Like, it seems like maybe he picked those ones, but, like, all babies cry. That's, like, the thing. So, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like he might have just picked them randomly. In reality, Elisabeth was probably just grateful that some of the children didn't have to live in the basement. Like, I'm sure in a way she was like, at least some of them are going to have kind of a normal life. I mean, now they don't because they know the truth, I'm assuming.
Did they get to, like, go visit their mom there?
No. They acted like they were raised by Rosemary. And,
No.
and for all intents and purposes, Rosemary thought that she was raising her grandchildren.
And
So-
her daughter was just off.
Yeah.
Technically.
She was raising her
technically
But she didn't know they
grandchildren
were also her
and her
husband's
half-
children.
Yeah, her stepchildren.
Yeah.
Stepchildren / grandchildren.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The 3 middle children were Alexander, Monica, and Lisa. Joseph seems to have no explanation for choosing them. I don't even think he really said anything except for, like, his weird excuse about the crying, and he's like, they were just getting too loud. Maybe, like, somewhere in the middle, maybe the reason that he left Felix down there was, like, because he was like, oh, there's enough kids upstairs so that, like, even if the baby's crying, I don't know. There's got to be, like, an explanation for it.
He
but...
and his messed up brain probably had some kind of logic going on.
Mm-hmm. The police, however, didn't really question the 3 children showing up. They kind of, like, didn't really question it. Like, they just kind of were like, okay, well, you're raising her children. Like, it's kind of, like, social services didn't even really, like, think twice about them. Because, like, they had, like, this letter that was, like, allegedly written by Elisabeth. So, Joseph went, like, back in the cellar, would threaten Elisabeth and the children that if they tried to touch the door handles, that they'd be electrically shocked, and if they tried to leave out of the doors, like, if they happened to be open at any point, a poison gas would be released into the cellar. So he threatened on multiple occasions to, like, shock them or gas them.
Right.
And I'm sure after enough times, like, especially, he's a scary looking dude. I'm sure after enough times of him saying this, they were like, oh yeah, we're just not going to try anymore. A seventh child, a twin named Michael, died shortly after birth due to breathing issues. Joseph burned him in an incinerator. I'm assuming he, like, knew somebody that had one. He denied in trial that the child had died due to negligence. And he, like, pretty much was like, I merely overlooked it. He doesn't claim to have neglected the child in any way, which, I mean, it was in a basement that didn't have any windows or doors that were open at any time, so, like, I don't know.
So
he did, like, neglect it, technically, but I guess, like, he technically didn't neglect it. So in 2008, 19-year-old Kirsten, so this is Elisabeth's oldest, and in 2008 she's now older than Elisabeth was when she went into the cellar. Kirsten fell, like, super, super ill, and Elisabeth managed to convince Joseph to bring her to the hospital. His plan was to just kind of, like, drop her off and then leave and hope nobody asked any questions. Because, I mean, there's no record of this person.
Of her existing.
Yeah. It's unclear what, like, finally made Joseph have a change of heart. Because for all intents and purposes, clearly intended on keeping Elisabeth until he died. Yeah. Like, he wasn't really planning on letting her out. And he wasn't planning on letting those children out because he didn't have any explanation of where they came from, so.
Plus, when they get out, like, he's assuming that they'll get out when he dies, and then he'll be dead, so no consequences.
Yeah. Well, and so some people think that he was starting to
feel bad.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think it was, like, maybe Elisabeth hadn't asked for anything that strongly in a long time, and he kind of just had, like, a moment of weakness. This moment of weakness was, like, obviously
a good moment of weakness.
What's the word?
Turning point.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Because once this, like, 19-year-old woman who was, like, extremely malnourished, she had terrible teeth, like, some of them were rotten. She's wearing homemade clothing. She wandered in this hospital and they had no idea where she met and so where she came from. And so they started asking questions. She couldn't talk because she was, like, extremely, extremely ill. And I think he was starting to feel, like, the police kind of closing in on him. So on April 26, 2008, so this is 24 years, little shy of 24 years, he released Elisabeth out of the cellar.
Just her?
She's the only one that initially left. Yeah, I mean, the kids were probably pretty scared to leave the cellar.
Because they did get of it.
Yeah, they did get it eventually let out, but...
That makes me so sad that they've never been out of this cellar and they're, like, teenagers.
Yeah, well, so yeah, Kirsten was 19. I want to say the other guy was, like, 16, 17. My God. And then Felix was the baby that was down there with him. He was 5. So Elisabeth, like, immediately went to the hospital to visit Kirsten. Police, like, were alerted to this, and they were like, oh my God, this is Elisabeth that went missing 24 years ago, that the Fritzls have been raising her alleged, like, religious cult children, and,
what the hell is what the cops were saying?
They came to the hospital, and they were like, dude, we're going to arrest you for... If this is your child right here in this hospital, we're going to arrest you for neglect because you clearly are neglecting her. And she was like, if you promise me I will never have to look at my father's face again, I'll tell you everything. And she did. So Joseph's lawyer claimed that the man was this is in court, was like a doting father. And he was initially protecting Elisabeth from herself when he locked her up.
Huh? Oh, and then you just started raping her.
This is, yeah.
Why did he think this story would pass?
In court, the lawyer actually, like, brought up this story about how Josef would like brought down this canary like for them to have a pet in the basement, and he was like, oh, like the canary survived, so that meant the living conditions weren't all that bad, like
it's
Elisabeth
a
was saying.
Bird.
Yeah, no, well, he's like, oh, the canary didn't die, the canary didn't suffocate, it must have been fine. And like this is so weird because it's so veering off of the idea that you can keep somebody captive, like, you know what I mean, like that's the main issue. Like they're completely going off track by this whole canary story. Elisabeth insisted that there were mice that she was constantly having to catch by hand. There was like water dripping down the foundational heavy quote walls because it was dirt. But there was like constantly water dripping down from like the side of the house.
They're
like,
underground.
Yeah, they're underground.
It's like a
bunker, but
lightly finished basement.
Not at all finished.
Like the walls are dirt.
Well, no, there's like Caitlin said, there's like weird parts where there's
parts
tile.
where it's finished. Yeah, like where the bathroom is.
Yeah, there's
finished.
like a bathroom with tiled walls.
Was there like, okay, so there's like a bathroom. Were they supplied with like products to like bathe?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't like particularly dirty apart from
The bathroom.
they lived underground, you know?
So they were probably dirty. So weird.
Wow. Oh my god.
Did you mention that like the door to the cellar was like only 3 feet tall?
Yeah,
I hate his
It was
face.
kind of like you had to crawl through it, essentially.
Yeah.
His children and grandchildren list on Google are the same.
Yeah, he's scary looking, right?
He looks like a creeper.
Is he?
Also, as you could imagine with, like, being underground, it was, like, super, super hot in the summer. Like,
and, like
it was like a
in the
sauna,
winter.
basically. Yeah. So, obviously, the question kind of at this point arose whether or not Josef had an accomplice. Just because, I mean, they couldn't believe, like,
well, because it's like
this
like horrible case that they're like, wait, did like this really happen with just one guy? Did one guy really pull off this like insanely like intricate sort of like abduction of his own daughter? I don't know. It's really weird. And I think that it's bizarre that what's her name? Rosemary just was like, yeah, it's fine. Like this kid can come live with me. I'll raise him as my own. Like didn't question anything. Like
so she truly I am of the belief that she didn't know. I know that might be, like, controversial. I truly don't think that she knew. Maybe she was just kind of, like, ignorant, honestly. But she didn't know. She thought these were her grandkids. I can see how she saw these, like, actual babies and was like, I'll raise
I mean,
them.
like, if, I don't know, I guess I don't know Josef personally, thank God. But if I did, I mean, maybe he's very convincing. Because, like, if someone would come to me and be like, oh my gosh, these are your grandchildren, you need to raise them as your own, she can't raise them, you know?
Yeah.
Then I feel like I would say, okay, sure. Like, they're your own, like, they're your grandchildren.
As far as I know, Elisabeth didn't have any, like, siblings that weren't her child siblings. So I'm sure, like, Rosemary, like, was like, oh yeah, like, I'd love to raise children. Like, I'm just assuming she had kind of that motherly instinct still.
Well, and after her daughter had run away, so like that was like a way for her to be close to her daughter in a way.
Yeah, I don't think Rosemary was the accomplice. I do think there had to have been someone that knew, like maybe they weren't like
fully
helping
or like understand, like really understanding what was happening.
Yeah, but
there had to be someone that had seen stuff.
Well, I think somebody
something.
knew that he was keeping his daughter captive in a basement. I think somebody knew that. Whether or not they were like, I don't know. I guess you're still guilty if you knew. But you know what I'm saying? Like maybe they weren't like entirely guilty of anything other than just knowing. But the reason people think this is obviously the births. Everybody's questioning how the heck she gave birth to this many children by herself.
Successfully.
Because Josef, like, very obviously didn't help her. But there were also, like, several times where the Fritzels would, like, leave on vacation, like, and they'd be gone for, like, couple weeks. And there had to have been somebody down there, like, bringing them food and water. Because Josef was bringing them food and water very frequently. Unless he just gave them a ton all at once. But, like, I don't know. I feel like there was somebody that again, obviously they're still guilty, but
house sat for them essentially.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh
So, Elisabeth is currently under protective custody. She lives with all of her children. Now that I'm thinking about it, it said she lives with her children, but I don't know that any of them are, if she is living with Alexander, Monica, and Lisa.
Okay.
I think they're all living, because they're all in protective custody. Like, there's, like, they have, like, bodyguards. They're in this, like, town that, obviously, like, they haven't revealed the name of the town. Like,
now?
Yeah.
Why are they in, like, protective custody? Because he's in jail, right? Joseph's in jail?
Yeah, he's in prison. Media.
Okay.
Like, honestly, I think they want them to be able to live, like, a normal life.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair point there.
So, and as far as I know, she lives with all the children. The youngest is like 17 and the oldest is now like 31.
Well, because you said Rosemary like fled when all this.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot about what happened. Like I think when she realized what was happening, when there was kids coming out of this basement cellar, and like
Elizabeth was children. Yeah, like Elizabeth was down there. She probably connected two and two and was like, "Oh my god, I've been raising my."
Yeah, as far as I know, she like fled. I think she was subpoenaed for trial. But I think the authorities truly thought that she didn't know anything.
Well, like I said, it's possible. I mean, like obviously, your first thought is not going to be. These are totally my husband's children with my daughter. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Like that would not be your first thought at all. So I could see how she was kind of just like of the like ignorance is bliss sort of mindset. You know,
totally.
like why bother thinking about it? Like I said, it was a way for her to be close to her grandchildren, she thought.
Yeah.
Well, they are her grandchildren, but anyway, we've been over that. It's weird. It's like I don't know what to call them other than grandchildren, stepchildren, but anyway.
So if there is any light at the end of the tunnel for this, I did see something that she fell in love with like her bodyguard and they like are in a relationship now.
Who?
Elizabeth. Yeah.
Lord
that was
knows
like
that she deserves
that's the most
somebody
recent
to
news.
yeah.
That's the most recent news story I saw.
Yeah, you can't find any like current day pictures of any of them because they've been in
the
this,
most
like,
recent. Well, yeah, they're in protective. They're essentially in like
witness protection.
Right.
I think the most recent picture of Elisabeth you can find anywhere is she was 16.
Yeah, it's before she was in
the cellar. Right. I keep seeing a bunch of like kind of like altered pictures of
what she might look like.
Think what she would look like.
I hate that.
No, but I think
unpopular opinion. I think
it was from when she was like discovered, which at that point she would have been like
she was
30 something.
Wait, 18.
So they're basically trying to age her face.
18 plus 24 is.
I know she's like in her early
42
50s now.
42.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were trying to age her face to be like this woman who just appeared at this age and who now looks like this.
Yeah.
Was just like found.
So, I mean, just a couple other little things that I found are that, like, at first the news and media were saying, oh, they're, like, in relatively good health. And then it started being revealed that, like, Kirsten was, like, tearing her hair out in isolation and, like, shredding dresses, essentially. And that...
Yeah, her clothing was completely destroyed.
Yeah.
She, like, most of them, their teeth were rotting out of their head.
And Stefan
a lot of them had breathing problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Stefan couldn't walk because he was 5'8" and it was a 5'6" ceiling.
Oh my god.
So he had to walk hunched over.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and they had to go through, like, therapy to be exposed to light, like natural light.
Well, what you said about breathing problems, there's probably a shit ton of mold down there.
Oh, there was definitely mold. Yeah.
Or other issues that he didn't properly
he didn't
like set it up, you know? So like things
it was very
that
much
would
like
happen.
a hole.
Yeah.
Like
so,
a bunker is almost the wrong term. Like it's kind of more like a hole that there happened to be a bathroom in. As far as I know, there was only like one actual bed.
No, it looks
like 2 in the floor plan.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it looks like there was like 2 bedrooms.
But honestly, I think the hardest part for me was thinking about that poor kid, like walking hunched over 24/7.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. Like, I just can't imagine what kind of, because the emotional trauma, in a way, might have been less than the physical trauma because.
It was all they ever knew.
They were all born into that.
Well, that's what
as
I
far
was
as
just
I can
thinking.
tell, Elisabeth was like very much trying to make it so that they weren't like, I don't know, because she had hope that they'd get out again. So she didn't want them to be totally like incapable of socialization. And like she taught them how to read and write. I mean, obviously like very basic. Yeah. And they probably didn't have a lot of like history or science education, but she prepared them as much as she could.
Enough to be literate.
Yeah, but that was what I was thinking. I was like, it's just so horrible because they literally don't know anything else.
Yeah.
Like, that's their life. That's how they live.
Yeah.
For all the, like, they don't even know that other people exist. Mm-hmm. You know? Like, it's just
I'm really glad
like
that they haven't ever released, like, photos of them either because
they really could live like a
I'm pretty sure
life.
They're just living mostly normal lives because they're in this like town, they're under protective custody, they've all like changed their names and stuff, and right. I mean, I don't know, it seems like they hopefully are getting counseling. When you don't have a birth
certificate, it's probably pretty easy to change it. Like they literally didn't exist to anybody.
They didn't exist in like
she called them by names that she had like thought of, but they didn't exist really technically, like in a birth certificate sense. So in that sense, it's like kind of this beautiful tragic. They can be whoever they want now. Mm-hmm. Like obviously they endured so much trauma that like they'll never really truly be normal because you can't really after that point, but they can still like basically have like almost like a second chance at life.
Yeah.
I guess so.
So on March 19th, 2009, Josef Fritzl was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 15 years. He didn't appeal. He kind of accepted
his fate.
Guilt.
Yeah, like he like immediately like said, "I'm guilty."
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. Lately, like within the past couple years, his health seems to be like seriously deteriorating.
Perfect.
He probably won't live that much longer.
Good.
Perfect.
He is like pretty alienated from the rest of the prison population.
Praise be.
They can't keep him in Gen Pop because
he would be killed.
Yeah,
essentially,
like people
for raping his daughter.
People know who he is, so like
people.
He doesn't.
Prison inmates still have morals.
Yeah.
Well, are they in like they don't like people that abuse children.
That's how American
rapists
prisons
and
are. So
child rapists.
It's the same over there.
And incestual child rapists. Like that's a lot. That's a triple whammy. They probably hate that man.
Yeah, he'd be dead by now.
So yeah, I mean that's all I've got for Elisabeth Fritzl. This next case, the reason that she came out about her abuse was hearing about Fritzel on the news. So this one actually predates.
Wow.
This predates Elisabeth Fritzl. I chose to put them in this order because I don't know. It made logical sense in this order.
I just have to say though, really quick about Elizabeth's case. I know that it's not really a happy ending, but it's like a happy ending for how it could have turned out, and I'm glad,
like pretty much the happiest ending you
possible.
Could get
I'm glad that they made it out. I'm glad that it wasn't any longer than it was. We obviously wish it was earlier, but I mean, like, hopefully these people are living like semi-normal lives,
in, like witness protection,
and they have all this treatment and therapies. And I was reading that like the upstairs and downstairs children are like finally getting closer. Mm-hmm. At least like the last update.
I think in a way it would have been harder for the kids living upstairs to like come to terms with the fact that they had siblings.
Oh yeah,
they had been like living. They had been chosen, actual squalor. Yeah.
It's like
for no other reason. It's kind of like than
survivors.
They only got to go up there
survivors guilt
for chance. Yeah.
Like there's no rhyme or reason really why they got chosen to go.
And I almost
but then they did.
It's upsetting because I wish that he had said why, but he didn't. And like, I mean, it's almost nice that he didn't.
It sounds like he wasn't in his right mind. Like, he was basically losing it.
I'm just
like, obviously he wasn't in his right mind to do it in the first place, but then like as time went on, he was like losing it and like kind of got to a point where he was like,
I don't even know anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, for all we know, he was like tired of doing this.
Almost gonna die. Maybe felt like he was gonna die. I don't know.
Or his resolve had finally worn down enough that when Elizabeth, because like I can imagine, so all that Elizabeth had was her children.
Yeah,
and so I can imagine that when one of them was like on death's door, did ever come out
what was wrong with Kirsten?
You know, all I could find was that she was like super, super ill, like
malnourished.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it had a little bit to do with malnourishment, lack of vitamin D. Perhaps.
They put her in a medically induced coma.
Yeah, so that's why they couldn't interview her.
And then she made a full recovery.
Yeah, they couldn't interview her, and I mean, but that's when they started looking around because they're like, she came in on foot, like
there's got to be a trail
on here.
There's only so many scenarios.
Which good on Austrian authorities for being like, this is not right.
Yeah, we gotta. I mean, people would disagree with you that because they really at the beginning did not look hard enough for her, in my opinion.
They didn't even look in the home. Like,
yeah,
I guess they learned their lesson the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because they like didn't have. I don't know, like what would have possessed them to look in the house, I guess, in a way.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if he had made up this fake evidence, she's technically 18. She can technically go wherever she wants.
Yeah, exactly. She's an
right?
adult.
So it's kind of like a tough situation where it's like, oh, okay, I guess she did go to join a cult. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Technically, she can do whatever she wants. She's 18. But I get what you're saying. I understand.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they would have found her immediately, but...
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, I don't know. With cases like this, it's hard for me to feel any
remorse,
sympathy for somebody who, I don't know, I have this like weird feeling that Rosemary like was straight up looking the other way. I don't think she knew anything.
That's what I'm saying. She was just like,
I don't think she knew, but I think she
ignorance is bliss mindset. Like, I don't want to know
she was
what's
basically
going
told
on.
not. She knew the cellar was there, and she was told not to go into the cellar, and so she just never did.
And I was reading that like, because at first she was living with her daughter and her step/grandchildren.
Yeah,
and then her daughter basically like kicked her out of the like.
I can't imagine that they would ever have any type of meaningful relationship after that.
You would hate her so much.
Because even if you believed that she didn't know.
Yeah.
She still could have. Yeah.
She didn't look hard enough for her daughter.
She didn't even give it a shot. Yeah.
Like,
didn't question anything.
Like, if one of us went missing, no matter how old we are, like, mom would search to the end of the earth.
Yeah.
And so I think it just, like, yeah. But she was also married to this crazy person. So, I mean,
so I'm saying,
what can you expect?
Who knows if she had endured abuse previously? I don't know. Like, I mean, that's not like. Really
also, we're assuming that she didn't know about the child abuse before she was in the cellar.
Right. Mm-hmm. Fair point.
Which I'm sure you know. Like, I feel like moms know when their child is being abused.
She's just straight up stupid,
ignorant. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So we're gonna kind of transition into the second case, which is So this one is French, and I am not good at French at all. Some of the names are French, so bear with me. Her name is Lydia Guardo, born November 13th, 1962, in Maison-Alfort, Val-de-Marne.
Oh, gosh.
Fancy.
I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. She's a French woman who was imprisoned for 28 years, raped, tortured by her legal father, Raymond Guardo, who was not her biological father. She, through some roundabout way, had been adopted by him.
Slightly better.
And all of this took place in their home in, I think it's Mois and Coulomb in Seine-et-Marne. The abuse took place from 1971 to 1999.
I keep wanting to be like, is that English? And like, no, Abby, that's the point. 1979.
That's why she can't pronounce it. So it happened before, but it was like similar time period, length of.
So abuse. She got out because her father died. and she like actually hadn't really told anybody about it. Again, I'll get into it. I don't want to like get ahead of myself.
I know. I'm excited. Well, not excited, but you know.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So Lydia gave birth to 6 children, all by her father. During
Very
her,
similar.
Weird.
yeah, during her imprisonment, she escaped and phoned legal aid. But her father recaptured her inside the family residence. My understanding is like she fled to somebody that like the family knew their home, and they called her father, and so her father came and got her. And it sucks because like I'm sure it was such an innocent thing to do for them to be like, oh, like,
How old was she?
I mean, at this point, I can't remember what year it was that she like got away for a minute.
When did she get captured?
She would have been I'm not good at math, and for some reason I didn't put the actual years in here. 1962
to 79.
71, so 9 years. Yeah.
So she was young. So she's a teenager. So they were probably like, oh, teenager rebelling against her father.
Yeah.
Not that that's better.
She was finally freed in 1999 when her father died. So the abuse took place from around when she was 8, and she was finally like, it became like a confinement thing around age now 1971. Her mother, who was not her biological mother either, knew about this, and there was actually like a closed door trial against her. I'm assuming it was closed because she got a 4-year suspended jail sentence, probably for information, I would assume, but also like it's not like they were convicting the father because he was dead, so like they should have put her away for life, in my opinion. I know it's like...
Did she know about literally everything that was going on?
She knew what was going on, yeah.
Yeah. Immediate life imprisonment.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I just can't imagine what got her the suspended jail sentence. I would think in a normal situation, her testifying against the father would do this.
Would, like, get her, a lesser sentence?
She had nobody to testify
I wonder
against.
if she claimed, like, that she was trapped as well.
Right, like, she had been abused. So,
Yeah.
like, she was also a victim or a previous victim of his. I don't know.
So Lydia claimed to have run away from her father when he hit her too hard. But she said she was always brought back by the police because she was a minor. She claimed to have not really realized the abuse was out of the ordinary. She said it like she kind of just assumed like this, like it could have been worse. She to this day actually has pretty bad scars all over her body, various things. So like I hate to even call him her father, Raymond, would pour like boiling water on her as torture. He would dip her appendages in hydrochloric acid. She also spent a lot of time locked in the attic of the home. This is like the weirdest part to me, and I know that's gonna sound crazy because obviously all of this is terrible, but she actually still lives in this home like to this day.
So she wasn't like locked in a cellar. She was just like, she was in the home.
Yes. She was locked in the attic most of the time because they didn't want her to run away.
Yeah.
Unless there was somebody home.
Yeah. She wrote a book about her story. It's called Les Silences des Autres, The Silence of Others. Her
mom, the silence of her mother.
She admitted that like the reason that she even like spoke up about this, like I'm pretty sure nobody knew about it, and then she saw Elisabeth Fritzl on the news, or her case was on the news, and she kind of like was like, oh, maybe like I can speak out about this. Like she clearly thought that this like constant abuse and essentially imprisonment was like normal,
unique to her.
So police also suspect Raymond Guardo in the murder of 4 other girls in the Paris area in 1987. They actually exhumed his body at one point to like
get DNA
tests for DNA. It doesn't seem like any of them are linked, and like the other evidence that would kind of potentially link him are circumstantial.
So her children lived with her in the home?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's not as much information about her, like, out there because, again, like, it wasn't a publicized case.
Right.
Because she came out at the same time as Elisabeth Fritzl, and everything was about Elisabeth Fritzl, you know?
Which, honestly, I feel like if I were her, that might have been nice.
Yeah.
I wonder
Less media
So
attention.
Lydia, like, she hasn't really, like, changed her name. She, like, a lot of people kind of knew that she was being abused. It's not like he was hiding it as well as Josef was. Like, people knew
Joseph
that she
was like,
lived there.
she doesn't exist anymore.
People knew that she lived there, and she never left. Like, you know.
Right. Like, it's crazy to me that she, like, wasn't, like, in, like, a bunker like Elisabeth was, like, where, like, he clearly was making it very difficult for people to know anything. Like,
It makes me think of the girl in the box, how, like, they let her out sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know, weird. Well, and that makes me really think that, like, there were multiple people that knew exactly what was going
people
on.
definitely did know. I'm just looking at this French article. Again, so Google will translate the page for you, but you still, like, it's hard to get the gist of the article because it's poorly translated. But this says that, like, a common phrase around town, because, I mean, or I guess village. It was a very, very small town. It was more of a village. This is, like, a translated phrase, but it says Father Guardo, who makes kids for his daughter, was, like, what they would gossip about.
Oh my god.
So obviously it was, like, a lot more well known than,
Ugh.
like, that's
So
the
people
thing,
knew
like,
that he was raping his daughter.
yeah, and people knew that she, like, never left the house. Like, she was always in there. So
Do you know how old she was when she had the first kid?
I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't right away because 8-year-olds haven't usually gone through puberty. That's totally an assumption, but
Yeah. It depends. Also, the chances of her surviving a pregnancy and birth at 8 without miscarrying or dying herself
definitely.
are, like, slim to none.
Which is even worse that he, like, possibly thought that through.
And waited until she was old
yeah.
enough in his mind to be raped.
so Lydia's stepmother / mother, her name was Lucienne. She was part of Lucienne, Lucienne.
Oh. I've heard it Lucian without
She, I guess, was convicted of sexually abusing one of the 6 sons. They were all boys. Yeah.
You're freaking kidding me right now.
The stepmom.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. They were all boys?
Yeah, it was 6 boys. Another difference is it seems like all the children still live with Elisabeth, and Lydia, all of her children, I think, have, like, gone on to live normal lives. She still lives in the house, but, like...
Ugh, how could you do that to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like psychologically that wouldn't be healthy at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like just, like, PTSD from, like, that traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Like,
I
you want to be able to look at anything the same.
Also, there's people that I know that have PTSD, and they, like, from much less severe events, I will say, and they still have trouble, like, being in the same room or, like, the same location, or, like, I mean, that's, like, very normal, and I just can't imagine, like, the nightmares that you would have, like, I don't know, or flashbacks.
To me,
like,
it seems like maybe she hasn't fully, like,
accepted
what happened,
or she doesn't have a lot of options.
Maybe.
I think how she ended up living with 2 non-biological parents.
Let us know.
So it says during Lydia's pregnancy, like her mother's pregnancy with Lydia.
Yeah.
Her mother met Raymond, and I guess after she was born, her biological mother broke up with Raymond and, like, left Lydia with Raymond.
So she might still exist.
Yeah.
She damn messed up, though. Shit.
Wow. Imagine how awful you would feel.
Anyway.
Because I'm sure
Lydia spent the first 3 years of her life in foster care while Raymond was serving a prison sentence for armed robbery. Upon his release, he gained custody of Lydia, and as well as her brother and sister, and settled with 3 children.
and then got married.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. It's a little bit more unusual than the theory we had that they just had.
Well, because usually if, like, a mom is going to leave her newborn baby, she leaves it with the biological father, which, I mean, he probably doesn't even know.
Well, maybe she didn't know.
Yeah, and maybe he doesn't know.
And while she was pregnant, while Lydia's mother was pregnant, she met Raymond. So maybe she didn't know. So obviously
she wasn't with the other.
Either she didn't know or she didn't care about the real father, the biological father.
So her siblings, Bruno and Nadia, I guess they were, like, severely mistreated as well, but
shocker. Bruno
complained to social services when he was, like, 15, and he got sent away to foster care. And then when Nadia was 20, she left the house, and, like, left Lydia behind. So it seems like Lydia was there by herself for several years.
Okay.
So Lydia had her first pregnancy when she was 19. And it says that Raymond tied her down for most of the pregnancy because he didn't want her to, like, flee and get an abortion.
Oh, God. Well, there's usually, like, a little bit of truth in town gossip, too. So, like, if they were gossiping about, this man fathering his daughter's children. Do you have any more notes on Lydia?
I don't.
Okay.
Again, it was, like, pretty hard to find anything that wasn't in French about her.
It is really weird how similar their cases are.
Yeah.
And I could see why when Lydia, like, heard about this and was like, oh, my God, like, almost the same exact thing happened to me. Mm-hmm. She was like, I need to tell somebody. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to come out with all this information.
Yeah.
Which, again, glad that she did. And glad to hear that Lydia and her children are living a semi-normal life like Elisabeth and her children are. As normal as you can be after all that. So,
all right, guys. So that's kind of all we have for this episode. Oh, and yeah, we are switching over to once a week episodes. So we will see you guys next Monday with we're kind of just going to transition to kind of
so you can start your
hour to hour and a half mark. Yeah. Episodes.
We want to be doing, like, really, really good quality, kind of like delve deeper episodes, but
and the best way for us to give you the best quality possible is to do once a week episodes, because I mean we all have, like,
I was gonna say we all have lives.
We are not full-time podcasters, which you've probably have guessed after listening to this podcast a few times, but
well, and, like, I mean, we are trying, like, to improve.
We're trying to be full-time podcasters.
We're focusing on quality over quantity is basically what we're gonna do moving forward. And then if at some point that allows us to go back to doing 2 episodes a week, maybe it will. Who knows?
Yeah. And we'll try to do, like, the occasional bi-monthly little freaky fast random guy.
Yeah.
I think maybe if we did, like, a supernatural one instead to switch it up, that'd be fun. But I mean,
so yeah, we will see you on Monday, guys.
Thanks for sticking with us.